Well, when it comes to China's tariffs, the MSM is once again in full meltdown mode, acting like the sky is falling. But not everyone's fallen for the panic, and Kevin O'Leary's here to tell you otherwise. In a recent appearance on Megyn Kelly's show, he broke down why these tariffs actually make a lot of sense, from dealing with China's non-existent IP laws to pushing for real reciprocity. So today we're covering everything Kevin had to say, and trust me, you won't hear this anywhere else. As always, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this.
They just totally ignore the IP, and they can't go back and litigate. The crazy thing, Megyn, is Chinese companies use the American legal system to sue American companies after they've knocked them off. Why is that okay? Then they
so in other words, you are over here as an American company, you come up with a design, you do all this R&D to make sure it's a safe product, it's an effective product, and then you bring it to market here and in China. And in China, here you'd be protected, but over there you don't have the protection, so they just knock it off and they start selling it for cheap. That's what you're saying, that there's no respect for your IP.
Well, it's worse. Maybe when they're young, they're taught this is completely fair to do this. You steal, you cheat. It's part of the psyche of how you build your economy. It doesn't matter that it wasn't your idea or that you spent millions of dollars in R&D to create it. They simply don't give a shit. And that is what we have to fix.
This is one important point that almost no one talks about when it comes to China's economy, and Kevin is absolutely right. Let me give you a couple of examples from products that made an appearance on Shark Tank, and you definitely know. First, we have Scrub Daddy. It's probably the most famous success story from the show, but if you hop over to Alibaba, you'll find something called Scrub Shooting Star, which is basically a direct knockoff at a fraction of the price. They didn't even bother to change the packaging much. Then there's Fur Zapper. It's a simple product designed to remove pet hair from your clothes while you're doing laundry. But again, head over to Alibaba and you'll find an identical product being sold for about 10% of the price. Innovative products get copied almost instantly, and the knockoffs flood the market, and which affects the original creator's chances to grow properly.
But these tariffs are not going to be forever. This is a game of chicken, two economies colliding with each other, one cheating and stealing and one not. At some point, you got to resolve the issue. And I think at some time in the near future, Xi is going to call Trump and say, okay, where do you want to meet? You want to go to Geneva? You want to go to Riyadh?
Is he? Because I mean, whenever you hear somebody talk about this, who knows China, who knows Xi, knows Chinese culture, they say he'll never call, never. Like he cannot lose face. But you know, Trump's kind of like that himself as well.
Well, I can assure you, within the Communist Party of China, there is a bunch of narrative going on about how long do they want to do this, because the only reason you stay in power in a communist society as a supreme leader is everybody's fed. They can take care of their families and they have jobs in factories.
Yeah, exactly. And we're already seeing signs of it happening. There are plenty of reports showing that many factories in China are either downsizing or shutting down completely. Even the New York Times ran a piece talking about it. They interviewed the owner of one of these factories, and she flat out said, quote, "The trade war has a huge impact because if you can't export, there will be fewer orders for clothing and there will be nothing to do." Of course, getting exact numbers out of China is nearly impossible. The CCP treats real statistics like a state secret, but even without hard data, you don't need a calculator to figure it out. When you hear story after story of factories closing or cutting staff, you can bet it's not just a few isolated cases. Kevin went on to explain why Xi Jinping doesn't have much of a choice here, and he made some valid points.
There aren't enough markets big enough to replace the American consumer. There just aren't. So at the end of the day, you got to start asking yourself, okay, if I'm Xi, do I print money so that I can pay these workers and then have hyperinflation where a loaf of bread, goes up 1,000%, the Venezuelan model? Or do I work something out with Trump so all this stuff we've made can get back into the market? Somebody's got to buy that. There's not enough people around the world to buy that, except you got to have the 39% of the consumers are sitting in America. That's who's going to sell the product. That's why I would think at some point, because I'm a pragmatic guy, again, I look at the policy. I know there's a lot of politics here, but if I'm Xi, I'm thinking, okay, how do I save face on this deal? What do I do here to get things going again so the stuff on the boats gets to America with no tariffs on it.
Or you can make your manufacturers go on TikTok and market their knockoffs as the original of well-known brands, then sell them at a fraction of the price. It's a desperate move and it shows just how bad things are getting over there. I've noticed, by the way, you haven't liked the video or subscribed to the channel yet, so what are you waiting for? Now, going back to what Kevin said, the numbers back him up. Not only is the US one of the biggest markets for Chinese goods, but we also spend more than anyone else by far. According to the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, quote, US household spending in 2023 reached $19 trillion, which is double the level of European Union and almost 3 times that of China. Those are crazy numbers. Kevin also explained what Trump's ultimate goal would be with those tariffs, and he summed it up perfectly.
I have nothing against the Chinese people. I don't like their government. I don't like their policy. And if you're not going to change the government, then let's cut a deal to have a reciprocal tariffs or no tariffs, but definitely access to the markets and definitely got to play by the rules. I would like to raise money in Hong Kong. I would like to approach their markets. I don't want to have my IP stolen. I don't want a 51% Chinese partner. We don't force that on Chinese companies here. But I'm telling you, it's time to clean this mess up once and for all. And yeah, it's uncomfortable and the ebb and flow and the volatility. But I say to everybody, chillax. Let this administration get this thing done and let's move on, because the last 20 administrations never dealt with it. This one is, you may hate Trump, you may have Trump derangement syndrome. I feel your pain for that. I don't care, because that's not what matters. It's the policy.
By the way, I'd like to remind everyone of something important. During his first term, Trump put tariffs on China, and just like now, the MSM and the left were crying about it, calling it reckless and dangerous. But here's the funny part. When Biden took office, not only did he keep those tariffs in place, he actually added new ones. So even though they're acting like the sky is falling today, deep down, they know Trump's approach wasn't wrong. They just don't want to admit it. And honestly, any sane person would agree that something had to be done. You can't just sit back and let American businesses get crushed by a country that made it clear they're going to break every rule in the book if it gives them an edge. And to wrap things up, we have Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirming everything Kevin said we analyzed in this video.
And nobody's better at creating this leverage than President Trump. He's shown the high tariffs, and here's the stick. This is where the tariffs can go, and the carrot is come to us, take off your tariffs, take off your non-tariff trade barriers, stop manipulating your currency, stop subsidizing labor and capital, and then we can talk. But I tell you, Martha, that we've had several of these Asian countries that come in and said, oh, well, we'll stop doing this, this, and this. And I look at these lists and I think, how did we get here? How did we get here? Because this trading system has been so unfair. And as President Trump says, I don't blame the countries. I blame the previous administrations that let them get away with it.
Call it harsh, call it whatever you want. But the truth is simple. Other countries have been taking advantage of the US market for years. We have one of the biggest economies and the strongest purchasing power in the world. And instead of protecting it, past administrations just let this happen. Now that someone is finally deciding to step in and fix the problem, everyone's acting like it's the end of the world. I promise it is not. It's called standing up for your own country's interests, and honestly, should have been done a long time ago. But I'd love to know your thoughts here, so let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, please share with your friends. It means the world. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.